Welcome back to another FPL reaction stream. This is not a drill and this is not a prank. I am going live during the middle of a game. We still have Wolves versus Everton taking place right now. I've only got one player involved because Matheus Cunha decided to be quite a special person last week in the FA Cup against Bournemouth and is suspended now, of course, which has been covered to death in the last couple of reaction streams and podcasts in general, mainly the transfer tips. But let's get into your questions, talk about how we're doing so far, our initial thoughts for Blank Gameweek 29. It is currently a red arrow for me, but I've got a lot of players left on the Sunday and just the one on Monday night in terms of that West Ham versus Newcastle game and a very template pick at that in Alexander Isak. But I am hoping that by the end of the game week, I am able to secure a small green arrow. But yeah, it's not looking great so far. I think the same might be the case for a lot of people watching, but there are going to be some out there with a very decent week so far, and hopefully we get a few of them in this stream. So FPL Kevy says 6 blanks and Salah played so far. It's not looking good, mate. Yet it isn't. And for those that captain Palmer, it's still possible for him to match or outscore Salah, but you're asking for a lot there, and it's not looking good at this moment in time for those that went against Salah. Easy says 36 points plus 4 players playing right now. Better Mikalenko, 8 Nuri and Sarr plus 3 players playing tomorrow. Yeah, surely you'll get some points in one way, shape or form in this game now. And then having 3 players tomorrow, not too shabby. It also depends who they are, but I'm guessing one of them is Cole Palmer. Salah just broke his own record in FPL with 9 games to go. Yeah, it's insane. It's one of the best Premier League campaigns of all time. There's no denying it. Up there with Luis Suarez over a decade ago, Thierry Henry on multiple occasions, Cristiano Ronaldo in his Ballon d'Or winning season. So this might even be the very best of the lot. And yeah, Salah's just been on fire. Not his best performance today, but both penalties were spectacular. Very emphatic. He never doubted him when he went up to take it. And Liverpool deserved the 3 points, of course. They created multiple big chances, and both of them were rightful penalties. Manish says 44 points with Salah bonus points coming. So maybe 50 points you're talking about if you captain him. So very decent. On 44 points with 6 players to go, hoping for a green arrow, and Pickford getting a clean sheet. Yes, I second that. I've got Mikalenko. I'm very much hoping that Everton are able to keep a clean sheet here. But probably as soon as I say that, 1-0 Wolves. Man City is finished, says 35 points with 5 left to play, 15 points off safety. It's not looking good, bruv. Oof. You keep changing this, by the way. It's kind of difficult to track who you are. But as long as Arsenal isn't finished, that's all good by me. Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of similar scores at the moment. So 35 to 50 points seems to be the barometer. Obviously, the template is very strong. Most of us would have captained Egyptian? Not the... Okay, that's just a stupid thing to say. I was trying to vary things up. Mohamed Salah, we all know who I'm on about. Singh says 43 points. Rodgers' goal being disallowed really hurt. I don't know what it is about Watkins getting the assist, Rodgers scoring, and it being disallowed. I mean, it happened not so long ago. I think Gameweek 27 against Crystal Palace away. So, yeah, we're getting the same kind of situation once more. Everyone except Salah blanking this Gameweek is looking disastrous. Yeah, so in my case, I've got Sells. The other 2 players I've had so far have blanked in Trent and Chris Wood, but yeah, if Salah's the only one really returning for you, you're not going to gain too much from that unless you triple captain him. And yeah, I think those that maybe put the armband and the activate the chip this week would be very happy actually in the end with those 2 penalties. But I'm still quite consistent saying that I would have kept it for Gameweek 32 on Alexander Isak. Could he get 15 plus points? Absolutely, but even with a double game week, it's not a guarantee. So for Salah to do that in a single shows how good he is. Are we overhapping Haaland captaincy next week? Well, Brighton are in form, and they won the reverse fixture against Man City. They could certainly cause problems at the Etihad. So I just don't think there's a particular standout. I think Cunha would have been my captain if he was available. Facing the worst team in the league, getting a goal and an assist, and then bonus points would have been almost inevitable, it seems. So now you're looking at Haaland and Chris Wood as the standouts, but it could be a surprising figure who rises to the surface as the best captaincy option like Cliver or Mbumo, who albeit are fairly template, Jared Bowen, but I don't think anyone really strikes out as, wow, we have to captain him. Cole Palmer's away to Arsenal. These Arsenal attackers, you might want to take a punt there, but I'm not expecting another 5-0 in that London derby. So yeah, is Haaland captaincy a bit overrated? Possibly, but if I had him, I'd be putting the armband on Erling Haaland. I agree, not the best game week. So far, no. Definitely not. Chris Wood seems an okayish option, to be fair. but that's it really. He's kind of okay-ish, and he played Ipswich Town only a couple of days ago in the FA Cup, and he did nothing in a 1-1 draw. You could say he's due a haul, so hopefully that happens in Blank Gameweek 29, but a bit like Salah this week, he's very template, and you would only expect that ownership to rise, especially with no Mateta, who obviously was going to blank anyway, and Cunha being suspended. Pedro have 9 points. Yeah, late penalty, of course. Whenever he scores, he's going to get those bonus points. I think today, in the stream earlier, I was recommending to most people to start Joao Pedro, and I went for a 1-1 draw. I was so close to getting it spot on, but yeah, Joao Pedro obviously won the penalty and buried it himself. Will you do Cunha, Salah to Haaland, Semenyo, wildcard 32? My problem with that, though, is even though you're wildcarding in 32, you are going without Salah in Gameweek 30 and 31. I'm not exactly sure about that, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, Semenyo I'm a bit less keen on right now as well. He is a differential, so that is the main appeal. He's got great shot volume, but not entirely sure about it. I get the Haaland appeal. I'd certainly want to captain him in Gameweek 29 and 30. But not having Salah in Gameweek 30 and 31 does seem a bit... It's just something I can't be on board with. So I'd probably say no. Terry says Mateta, Palmer and Hall to Haaland, Gavardio and a 5-point family mid. Is it a good idea? If yes, which mid do you recommend? Yeah, at that price point and below, I've been saying Guarnieri as your 8th attacker is kind of sound. He's probably the one I'd recommend the most. Yeah, Dango is not someone I'd be recommending right now. Not for me. Yeah, I think Guarnieri, I'd keep it simple there. And Haaland and Gavardio are good acquisitions. As long as you're happy with how your team is set up by getting Haaland in, I think that's fine. Salah saves everyone game, especially those that captain him. The thing is, though, his effective ownership is very high, so it's not going to make too much of a difference. Of course, it's better to captain him than not captain him, but hopefully we see more variance next season with multiple great captaincy options and not just the one who pretty much gets returns every single week. And even his closest competitors like Isak and Palmer, they have kind of dropped off, especially in the case of Palmer. Who do you personally prefer, Salah or Hazard? Well, Hazard is a better dribbler and he's more exciting to watch, that's for sure. And Salah is an efficient player. In terms of consistency and goal output, I think Salah is quite clear there. I mean, I'm not going to say similar to the Ronaldo-Messi debate because Messi pretty much matched Ronaldo's goal scoring, especially in La Liga, but yeah, I think because of the consistency and the multiple great campaigns, I think Salah is probably better. With Hazard, I think the issue is he had 1 or 2 seasons where he was completely off it. I think 2013-14 and 2015-16. In between that, of course, he won the Premier League and he had a great season. But he had a few campaigns, I think, where he was really poor. That's what kind of lets him down. Now, when he was young at Lille, he was already very exciting. Salah had a good season at Basel, but then struggled at Chelsea. So it's difficult to say, but I'd probably say Salah for the consistency. Rogers is finished, says, no, Dylan, that's my twin brother, but I'm here. Wait, is that actually a thing? Wait, so there's 2 of you? No way. Wow, fair play. That's a plot twist, if ever I saw one. Wow. Cunha to Wood, Marmoush, Ivanoson, which one do you prefer? Wildcard in 32. Yeah, I've seen a few people mention wildcard 32. Interesting. Yeah, good transfers overall. I think Chris Wood, template, safe, maybe boring, but I think he's the best forward to buy right now. I like the other options as well. I think Marmoush will start against Brighton. And Ivanoson is a nice differential. But I think for a lot of people, I'd recommend Wood. Especially for those that have double Bournemouth already. You might even have 2 attackers like myself in Semenyo and Kluivert. I think having a triple up is a bit too far. So Chris Wood for me. Good transfer. Jay Ward10 says Captain Palmer wasn't unhappy until Salah got his second. Let's hope Palmer gets at least a couple of returns so it's not too bad. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. And I'll check what his effective ownership is fairly soon. I'll try to do it now and see if that will affect my rank. So if it doesn't lead to a red arrow or, every, Palmer return basically means I'm going to go down in rank, then I'm quite happy with it. I don't mind if he does something. So I'm going to have a look now and see what that means for my rank. I don't think it'll be too bad. I think Salah is still the template pick. So Palmer's effective ownership is 100.4%. And that is, let's see, I think those are, yeah, in the top 10k. And around my rank is 89.9. So actually I'd gain a very small rank rise from Palmer doing well. So yeah, I'm hoping that he can do even match Salah. I wouldn't mind too much. Maybe one less return, a goal and an assist, so to speak. Wei Seng says, thought the reaction stream is tomorrow. Yeah, I know, there is a game right now. I get it. It's just my plan is to record the transfer tips tomorrow since they are very popular on the Sunday. And also for UCL Fantasy, there's still the wildcard video to record and my team selection, which I'll probably do on Monday. So that's why I had to do the reaction stream now. Otherwise, there is none. So the way I see it, it's better to have one than have none at all, right? And yeah, it is in the middle of a game. Hopefully we get some return from Mikalenko and these players we own. But yeah, it is what it is. I know it's very late where you are. You can maybe watch it in the in playback. When you wake up, but you should definitely get some sleep, mate. I definitely recommend that. Sorona says, I've picked for Kirkers, Munoz, Ainuri, Trent, Gay, Mbumo, Salah, Clivert, Bowen, Beto, Wood, Isak. Would you free hit in 29? Yeah, good players overall, but to break it down, you've got Isak blanking, Salah, Trent, and Munoz. That's 4 players. It also depends how many free transfers you got. But I would recommend saving the free hit for Gameweek 33 or 34 if possible. Yeah, Joao Pedro, 98th minute pen. He won it himself, got maximum bonus points, and it was emphatic finish from the penalty spot. Yeah, Joao Pedro is a very good penalty taker, and he's a bonus points machine. Dango to Semenyo, Savio, Elanga. Which one for the next 3 games? My favourite would be Elanga. It's a close one though, and you could argue that Semenyo is the more consistent of the 3, and Savio might be the most exciting with his low ownership and Man City. I know they were disappointing today, but they should have scored, I think, and they were a bit unlucky to lose. But it would be Elanga. Would you prefer Semenyo or Hudson-Odoi over the next 3? Now, I do prefer Elanga over Hudson-Odoi, but I think from these 2 it's close, and I would lean towards Hudson-Odoi still. Who's the best person to captain next week? Well, not Salah. That's a good thing, right? For me, Erling Haaland would be number 1, but it's not like a landslide. He's not the outright best captain. I'd also put the likes of Chris Wood up there. I also think Phil Foden could be a nice punt. He's got a great record against Brighton. So those 3 would be near the top 5 for sure. Haaland would be my definitive pick. You'll see my top 10 list fairly soon, probably in the best wildcard team video at some point next week. Sefer says, hey Dylan, thoughts on Palmer to Dango and Cunha to Haaland for a -4 in Gameweek 29, Salah, Munoz and Isak on the bench. I'm considering something very similar, in fact. The problem I have with this is that Dango might not even start against Tottenham tomorrow. And could he do something off the bench? Absolutely. And of course you're buying this player for Gameweek 29, but with Ivanoson now back in the squad, I'm less keen on buying Dango. So if you wanted to get a budget midfielder, I'd probably go for Wanyeri actually as an 8th attacker. Greaves to Ainuri looks tasty for the blank, but at the end of the day, it's Ainuri. I think that's a great way of summing it up, and he's been a troll for me in the last couple of seasons. I think I bought him in April last year. He did absolutely nothing for me, then got injured. And this season, he got me a clean sheet against Southampton, which is his next opponent. But after that, he got 1 assist against West Ham. And that's about it. He even got booked in that game, so I couldn't celebrate those returns. Salah is making the game boring. I agree. It was a bit like Haaland last season and also the year before. But yeah, I think in terms of the captaincy, it is quite stale. Now, it kind of removes one headache, you could argue. You just captain Salah, you know he's going to do well 9 times out of 10. But yeah, I think next season Salah won't repeat what he's doing now. He could still do very well, don't get me wrong. 20 plus goals, 10 plus assists. But I think we'll have more variance with the captaincy. Horterhausen or Milenkovic? Nico, which one do you prefer? Well, if I'm buying one now, it's probably a Forest defender. And Milenkovic has the best attacking for it. So it would be Milenkovic. Lille, not Leon. I said Lille, right? I'm pretty sure I said Lille. Yeah, I don't think I said Leon, but Maybe I'll watch it back and see if I'm bugging out. I bench Cliver and I'm afraid about some points. Wood only 2 points. Which player do you prefer to transfer out, Trent or Munoz? I think I'll try to get Gavadio or Nuri. Ooh, yeah, benching Cliver could sting tomorrow. We'll see how that turns out. The thing is, with Munoz, you'd probably buy him back for Gameweek 30 anyway. He's got the double in 32. The fixtures aren't great for Palace after 30, but the double compensates for that. I'd rather sell Trent. And even then, it's not something that I'm particularly enthused about. Gavadio looks quite promising. I think both with Gavadio and Nuri, you've got attacking threat. And I still trust City more than Wolves defensively, but that's 15 losses for Man City in the last 30 games across all competitions. It's ridiculous. No one expected this drop-off, but it would be Gavadio for me, and I'd sell Trent. Thank you, Sophia. Massively appreciated. Shavain says 44 points and 5 players left. That's decent. Yeah, that's pretty good. And if you can get to 60, 70 points, it might even be a green arrow at the rank you're at. Is City players essential for next 3 weeks? If yes, who? No, they're not essential. But my favourite will be Haaland. The problem is, could you still build a really solid 50-man squad with him? That might be a bit debatable. I think Foden looks really appealing in Gameweek 29. His record against Brian, which I mentioned briefly earlier, is very impressive. So, yeah, I think having 1 or 2 City players looks very solid, but it's not essential. Gavadio at the back is my favourite. I wouldn't invest in any other Man City defender. Need better to cook right now. For my FPL head-to-head league that I've got, I actually want better to Blank and Mikolenko to return, but yeah, it'll be funny to see how it goes. Sells and Milenkovic on the bench, FML. I mean, I don't know who you started over them, but especially in the case of Milenkovic, I could understand that. I think in a lot of cases today, in the deadline stream, I recommended starting other defenders over Aina, for example. But with Sells, I've said repeatedly in the last couple of weeks, he's my favourite goalkeeper until the end of the season, and he's not the type of goalkeeper you ever want to bench because he can surprise you with those clean sheets. That's 13 for the season. I think I think Forest will win the Golden Glove, or Sells will win it, and they'll keep the most clean sheets overall. The only team that can compete for that award will be Arsenal and Raya. So, yeah, I think Forest are in a great position right now. Wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34, triple captain 36. Thoughts? Looks solid on paper. There's different ways of playing it. For example, you could bench boost, well, yeah, 33 I think is the best time to use it. There might not even be a double Gameweek in 36. That's worth mentioning. You could also triple captain in 32, and you might even wildcard in 31 or 35. But you don't have the assistant manager. I think for those with that chip, they could definitely use it around Gameweek 31. And if not, you're looking at the Gameweek 35, 36 period. But from what you've said, it looks solid, but I don't know your team and also how many transfers you've got available and how you're looking to maybe join up these chips. We still don't have full clarity on Blank Gameweek 34 yet, and there could be some upsets in the FA Cup. And to be fair, a lot of those games are evenly poised, so it's difficult to predict. 1 million FPL managers bench sales. I'm actually surprised by that. That's probably one of the reasons why I'm close to getting a green arrow, despite not having many players featured today. Matt Sells has been the star of my Gameweek so far. He's actually got a bonus point as well, so that's 8 overall. My season is finished when Salah scored the second. Really? I mean, yeah, you captained Palmer in the stream earlier, but Palmer could still do something. Of course, you probably need him to brace to feel decent about it, but Everton 1-0, need Mikolenko clean sheet. Yeah, let me check who it is. Hopefully not better, but it probably is, isn't it? So, yeah. 1-0 Everton, and... oh, it's Harrison. Okay. Did Beto get the assist? No, he didn't. Lindstrom assist. Yeah. 33rd minute goal. Interesting stuff. Wow, we got an early goal. Interesting. Forest and Arsenal has the better defence this season. Well, Forest have kept more clean sheets. It's just... what I would say is that there are certain games where Forest have been battered. Against Arsenal for one, against Man City in the other game, against Bournemouth as well, 5-0 loss. So, call me biased, but I still think Arsenal have the better defence, but Forest are very close and they'll probably keep more clean sheets. If you look at their fixtures from now until the end of the season, I think Forest will end up keeping more, but because there are certain games where they have been battered and up until now, Arsenal haven't been battered in any game, really. Yeah, I'd say Arsenal have the better defence, but it's close. I think last season we all kind of agreed, yeah, Arsenal have by far the best defence. This season, it's slightly different. Maybe Peter, I'm not sure if it's bottling it. I mean, Arsenal do have some injuries at the front line, and I do think circumstances have been a bit harsh on them, but yeah, Forest have a good chance of finishing second. Ultimately, doesn't matter. Second, third, fourth, I'll be honest, I really don't care. So for me, it's about winning the title. Arsenal were never going to win it once Saka went down injured against Palace. So yeah, Forest have a good chance, but it's not a guarantee. I also think Forest should probably focus on the FA Cup. It's a chance for a trophy. They can still finish top 5, qualify for Europe, and have a very good season. Why Marmoush not starting? He should be the first team player, while they only have Premier League to play for. Well, Man City do rotate a lot in those attacking positions. I think he'll play against Brighton. I'm very sure of that, actually. But that's just something we're kind of used to with Pep by now. The only one who isn't benched is Erling Haaland. Jose says, is Man City offensive assets attractive? Good fixtures, but form still poor. I still think Haaland's the best captain for Gameweek 29, but he's not by far the best option. I think it's very close, and there isn't any standout for Blank Gameweek 29. So when you factor that in, and also the main issue of Haaland's price and what that means for the rest of your squad, I'm not entirely sure about going all in on him and taking hits to sell Palmer, for example, as bad as he's been recently, to go for Erling Haaland. But yeah, I think having one C attack is still viable, especially for the blank. And then you've got some good fixtures afterwards, like Leicester at home, actually, where I think the likes of Marmoush and Foden can do really well. So I wouldn't go overboard. I think having one City player is enough. You could even say 2 of Gvardiol, but I wouldn't recommend a triple up long term. Not at the moment, anyway. Worth selling Palmer and or Isak, wildcard 32. This is my main issue with having, for example, Haaland in your team, because it might mean selling Palmer and Isak, and I get it. Isak blanks in 29, Palmer faces Arsenal away, and he's in poor form, but I'm not a big fan of that, even if you wildcard in 32. It might work short term, to be fair to you, and Haaland is probably the most appealing captain in 30. But I don't like selling Isak and Palmer. Let's not forget, Newcastle have a good fixture in Gameweek 30 as well. Since Brighton lose 7-0 against Forest, Brighton have won 6 games in a row. Yeah, in the FA Cup against Chelsea, and also I think 4 in the Premier League. I think they've become the first team since the 1930s, and I think the team in question was Grimsby Town. I saw the stat posted on X, so very impressive stuff. Brighton have responded brilliantly. Hurstler, obviously a very young coach, he's got potential, and he's found a winning formula. Everton goal, lovely, says Man City's finished. Yes, indeed. Hopefully Beto doesn't score. No offence to any Beto owners in the chat. Just a selfish interest of mine. You're right about Dango's minutes, and he'll be less threatening playing in his old position. Will most likely go with Wanyeri or a Forest midfielder. Yeah, Elanga's my favourite still, despite Hudson-Odoi's goal today. And I've been quite consistent on Wanyeri, where I'm not that bullish on Arsenal attackers, but for his price as an 8th attacker, I think he looks very impressive, and I think Wanyeri's just had a very good goals and assist record per 90 minutes. Yeah, I think the big question there is, do you go Elanga or Hudson-Odoi, or do you just go for Wanyeri? That's the big question. And with Dango, by the way, in December, he came off the bench against Tottenham, and he did so well. So for those that still have Dango starting for them this week, he could do extremely well, I'm not going to lie, but long term, I just wouldn't invest in him right now. Salah will not always be an option for the captaincy next season, especially with AFCON. There are options of captaincy during Salah's absence. That's true. I think you mentioned that as well in the deadline stream earlier. Yeah, the thing with Salah is I think there will be a drop-off, which is natural, because what he's doing this season is ridiculous. I mean, we've rarely seen this in the Premier League in its 30-year history, so it's one of the best campaigns of all time. He'll still do very well, get 30, 40 goal contributions next season if he's still at Liverpool, and I think he will stay for at least another year. 59 points of the bonus is added and 4 left to play. That's very good. I always say this, I'd rather have points on the board than have players in hand, so that's pretty decent. J Ward 10 says Cunha to Haaland, Palmer to Elanga Wanyeri, and Trent to Milenkovic for a -4. So as I said earlier, I'm not particularly fond of taking a hit for Erling Haaland. I'm actually in a position where I could do something similar. Maybe instead it would be Nico Williams coming in. I can also buy Wanyeri and Erling Haaland, Palmer being sold, and also Matheus Cunha. I would say yes in your case. You might feel a sting in terms of Palmer from Gameweek 30 onwards and Trent having good fixtures after the blank. But if you're wildcarding fairly shortly afterwards, then maybe that is worth a -4 hit. That'd be my current preference, and between Elanga and Wanyeri, it's close. I think for Blank Gameweek 29, I do prefer Elanga, but longer term, that's a different answer, I think. Very close. I think when you wildcard, ultimately defines whether you should do it or not, and which player you bring in between Elanga or Wanyeri. So Canelo says 39 points, better on Mykolenko playing, plus have 4 players apart from that, but bench Nico Williams. Yeah, Williams was close to bonus points. I'll go through that now, actually. So let's go to the bonus points here. And as you can see, we can update it. So still, Wolves have scored. That's great. Wow, so yeah, no clean sheet for Mykolenko. That is just great. But yeah, we'll talk about that soon. And I won't discuss bonus points for that game just yet. But that is a shame. It was inevitable for Mykolenko to blank once I went live. So for Forest, Man City, Hudson-Odoi maximum bonus points. Maria will get 2 and Sells is set to get 1, but there can be modifications to the BPS by the end of the game week. For the Fulham-Brighton game, João Pedro with 3, Raul Jimenez with 2, and Van Heck with 1. For Crystal Palace Ipswich Town, Dean Henderson with 3, Ismail Assar with 2, and Chris Richards with 1. Munoz not too far off there. So Liverpool, Southampton, no surprises with Salah getting maximum bonus points, Darwin with 2, and Diaz with 1. And for Brentford, Aston Villa, Ollie Watkins with maximum bonus points against his former club, Tyrone Mings with 2, and Konsa with 1. And of course, Emi Martinez missed out today, and Olsen came in and did a very good job actually, getting 7 points, very close to getting an additional 1 for a bonus. That would have been a very good return there, but does anyone own Olsen? Probably not. And if they do, they probably haven't benched. But those are the games and the bonus points as things stand. There could be some changes. I don't like when FPL do that, but it is what it is. Now, there could be some big changes in the FPL Dylan Mini League, but before today's matches, Callum was top. Callum Jr. on YouTube. It's always good to see him in the live chats. And he was 8th in the world. Hopefully, he has gone up even further in the rankings. With the FDR, and I'll talk more about this in the deadline stream next week, Bournemouth are top. Arsenal, Man City, Southampton, and Nottingham Forest complete the top 5, and you can see some provisional double Gameweek 33 fixtures, but that all depends on the FA Cup results and who will then blank in 34. The bottom teams include Everton, Ipswich Town, Leicester, Aston Villa, and Tottenham Hotspur. Even Liverpool are in the bottom 6, but the blank in 29 plays a huge part. With predicted points, Haaland is top. Palmer, Semenyo, Foden, Chris Wood complete the top 5 here. So a very different list to what you're probably used to. Bruno Fernandes, Kluivert, Odegaard, Beto, and Mbumo finish a very unorthodox top 10. With assistant managers from Gameweek 29 to 31, Guardiola is top, and Ruben Amorim is second. Postecoglou and Arteta complete that top 4 with Iriola, Frank, McKenna, Potter, Silva, Juric, Pereira, Moyes, Emery, Nuno, Slot, Maresca, Glasner, Van Nistelrooy, Eddie Howe, and Hörsler. That is the order of the best managers for the next 3 Gameweeks according to Fantasy Football Hub. If I just look at Gameweek 29 specifically, McKenna is first, Guardiola and Arteta in the top 3. You've got Postecoglou and Iriola also quite high up in those rankings. With projected price changes, 8 Nuri, Sarr, Wan-Bissaka, Minter, and Kanate could go up in price tonight. As for price falls, you've got quite a few there, but I think livefpl.net are probably the best in terms of predicting these changes. So they are actually expecting 4 players to go up in price tonight. 8 Nuri, Wan-Bissaka, Sarr, and Minter, just like Fantasy Football Hub. And price falls include Gakpo, Kulusevski, Ahmad, Rogers, Dubravka, Hughes, Jacob Murphy, Samari, Emerson, Jones, and let's see who else. There might be a few more. Yeah, there's still a few more. Kelleher, McAteer, Calvert-Lewin, Decore, McNeil, and Ward. So, is it even worth talking about captaincy at this point? Well, Salah has been captained by pretty much everybody. 94% of those in the top 100k. Almost 95%. It's ridiculous. Palmer in second with 4.74%, and the rest, not even 1% in terms of captaincy effective ownership is kind of ridiculous. In Boomer and Haaland in the top 5 as well, and those two did blank in today's matches. So I did talk about this earlier in my deadline stream. So for Blank Gameweek 29, I could buy Erling Haaland at the expense of Palmer, but it does mean a -4 hit, and I do have Colwill away to Arsenal, which doesn't look great. But I could buy Wanyeri, Haaland, and then, instead of 8 Nuri, because I'm 0.1 million off these moves, I could buy Nico Williams. Let me know in the live chat what you think of these possible transfers. The players being sold include Veltman, who is red flagged, and yeah, he's facing Man City away anyway. I do think City will score in that game. I've also got, who's the other one being sold? Jesus, I'm forgetting my own team. Yeah, Palmer for Wanyeri, and then Cunha for Haaland. And that leaves me with 0.2 million in the bank, -4 hit. So that's one possible set of transfers. Otherwise, I could just buy Evanilson, Marmoush, maybe Visser. Instead of Erling Haaland, I keep Palmer, and I don't take a -4 hit, and I can buy the likes of 8 Nuri, Milenkovic, Nico Williams to bolster my defensive line. I could even buy Gabriel if I buy Visser or, let's say, Evanilson, for example. Someone cheaper than Cunha, which gives me enough money to buy Gabriel, which for me is the best long-term purchase. I have missed Arsenal defensively in the last couple of weeks. With FPL Challenge, this is how things are looking like at the moment. Alisson in goal, made that mistake with Van Dijk, miscommunication, which led to Smallbone scoring the opener. Trent was close to getting a bonus point, but he ultimately blanked. Munoz got a clean sheet. Gabriel is yet to play, but I could change some of these players that are yet to play. Salah as my captain, very boring stuff. Diaz was there, and he's set to get 1 bonus point, so that will be 6 overall. So that would actually mean 47 points, and then on top of Salah's 6 additional points. Yeah, that's not looking too bad, actually. 53 as things stand, and then with Watkins getting maximum bonus points, that would be 56 with my FPL Challenge team. Son, Palmer, and Isak yet to play. My final manager will be Postecoglou, or I think Graham Potter, just targeting those table bonus. That is my current plan. So yeah, with those, yeah, Salah 6+ points, Watkins 3, and Diaz 1. Let's quickly change the FPL Challenge Gameweek points, because it's currently 56 with those also added. So yeah, just a shame about Mikalenko and Everton not keeping a clean sheet there against Wolves, but I did go for a 2-1 Everton win in my prediction. We'll see how accurate that is in the end. So let's get this show on the road. All right, I'll leave that on for a little while longer and also answer some of your questions again. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong... Yeah, that will look better. Yeah, that looks even better. There we go. Okay, so let's go for some more questions. John S says, bring in a Forest defender or 8 Nuri. I already have Gibbs White and Wood. I definitely recommend a Forest defender. For those that have Cells already or another Forest option in that back line, it might be slightly different, but yeah, I'd go for a Forest defender. I think the one with the most attacking threat is Milenkovic. He's had 6 big chances this season, an XG figure of over 3, and from set pieces, he's always targeted from those situations. Aina can get the odd assist, but mainly bonus points. But he does cost significantly more, and Mika Williams is the cheap option to enter that Forest defensive line, but Milenkovic would be my favourite. Mo Salah Ballon d'Or incoming. Rafinha might have something to say about that, and I do think we have to see how the rest of the season pans out, but those two will be, by far and away, from the rest right now. But it is a long season, and I don't think it will happen. But if Liverpool fault in the Champions League, and it's a Premier League and Carabao Cup double, that's still enough, I think, with Salah's performances to have a real claim for it. But let's not forget Rafinha, who's done even better in the Champions League, and I think that will be very important. Yeah, so at the moment, it's close. So I think in terms of domestic league, Salah's been better. Rafinha's been excellent as well, but I think Salah's been, even more of a standout. And in the Champions League, I think Rafinha's been significantly better than Salah, in my opinion. So it's close, I have to say, between these two. But when people say Mbappe's in the podium, he started quite poorly, then he's had a pretty decent streak since December, actually. But yeah, I think he's some way off Rafinha and Salah. At the moment, I'd say Salah first, Rafinha second, but all I'm going to say is that the difference isn't that big and the Champions League will be crucial. Forest going for Champions League will be so focused, can see more cleans. Same here, don't get me wrong, I just think the FA Cup should also be prioritised because it's a chance for trophy, and yeah, Forest might not get a better chance for the next couple of years. Are you planning to go with Gabriel or Gvardiol going forward? Gabriel. And I do like Gvardiol. He offers even more attacking threat with the assist. He bombs forward on the left-hand side. But Gabriel is still a set-piece threat. We haven't seen Arsenal score one in a couple of months, but yeah, Gabriel with the clean sheet potential that Arsenal have over Man City, I think that's already enough to determine it. I think Saka does come back. I don't want to see him rushed, though. I don't think it's worth it. But then again, if Arsenal go through to the next round, which is almost a certainty, facing Real Madrid or Atletico, I think having Saka and Martinelli back would be a massive boost, and it gives Arsenal a chance, although they wouldn't be favourites at all. I think Saka comes back next month, and I hope that's the case, unless he suffers a setback, God forbid. Which team plays the target for the next 3 game weeks only? Nottingham Forest, Man City. Interesting one, that is a good question, but those two do spring to mind. They really do. And that might even be worth going back to the FDR and looking at the next 3 game weeks only. So, let's put the next 3 game weeks. Yeah, Bournemouth, I think are decent. Yeah, so Kirkis or Howson at the back. Clivert in the midfield, and if you want to go differential, maybe Evanilson up front. So yeah, Bournemouth, Man City and Forest for me would be my favourites. Even Arsenal aren't too shabby, I guess, but yeah, that would be my top 3. Let's now go back to my FPL squad. And yeah, people are not happy with the Wolves goal. I know this was posted some time ago. Terrible defending, someone says. Wolves scored, yeah. Hi Dylan, still got my AM chip left. Which do you think is the best window for it? I think without thinking of the other chips, it's going to be around game week 31 to 33, but it's not as appealing as it maybe once was, with Newcastle not doubling in 33. That's a guarantee. But you could still use the AM in 31, have the double for Eddie Howe or Glasner in 32, and then switch to a manager who doubles in 33. So that could work very well for you. Just remember, if you want a bench boost in 33 or triple captain as well, then in that sort of scenario, I would recommend 35/36 for the AM chip. Obsessed Nation says, I'm convinced that Sugawara is a Liverpool agent because he has 2 handballs coming in from the bench that has resulted in a Liverpool winner. That's a good shout. I forgot about the first one. Yeah, Liverpool were quite fortunate in the game at St. Mary's to win that, and yeah, Sugawara was very, very disappointing there. I mean, going into this season, I heard he was one of the better Southampton players, so that probably says a lot. Is Dango a sell or better to take a -4? Depends who you're buying for a -4 hit, but I don't see many midfielders that really stand out to me in 29 that justify the hit. I think having Dango could still work fairly well, both against Tottenham tomorrow and in 29. But yeah, the standout midfielders in 29 would include Bowen. I think he'd be up there. Clivert, Mbeumo. Palmer is still an option. Phil Foden, those are my favourites. Then you're looking at Wanyeri, for example. But I'm not sure about a -4 hit there. A Captain Palmer, I'm on 32 points with 4 players remaining. Salah is so lucky, but I guess penalties are the name of the game, and VAR is tilted towards Liverpool this season, says Yusuf. Yeah, just be careful, some Liverpool fans might attack you. I wonder who you support, but I think both of these were penalties. I think the first one, I mean, Darwin makes a meal of it, but he does go through the back of him. So yeah, unfortunately, that's the way football is right now. You've got to kind of exaggerate contact, dive, and, you know, really hammer home to the referee, there's contact, and then they get the penalty. But sometimes it doesn't even, get given for other teams. I mean, the Premier League can be inconsistent with the officiating, but I think both of them were penalties. Salah gets to the point where he just needs to be captain. That's been the case for a few months, though, unfortunately. Since Game Week 10, it became very clear to me. That's why I bought him back after that Game Week 6 disastrous wildcard I did where I sold Salah. Looking back on it, that was a terrible decision, at least with that particular pick. AFCON is in December to January. Yeah, usually it starts in January, but yeah, December, that's an interesting one for sure. Yusuf says BPS for penalties should be awarded much less. It's too easy for the likes of Salah to always get highest bonus points. I agree. And I saw a stat on X. I need to double check it, but Salah's had 11 penalties this season, which is a massive boost to his appeal. I mean, look at Palmer last season where he had 10 penalties and yeah, people were saying he's the best FPL asset. And now, without as many penalties, he has dropped off a little bit. Insane Gamer 7 says, hi Dylan, minus 12 taken with 52 points. Good score. I'm thinking about selling Salah and Mateta for Haaland and Gibbs-White. Yeah, Gibbs-White is going under the radar. Everyone mentions Alanga or Hudson-Odoi as they're cheaper. But Gibbs-White has been going quietly about his business. Another assist. He was also very fortunate because he made a massive mistake towards the end, which resulted in a Kovacic volley, and it went just wide. But yeah, Gibbs-White is another example of a bonus points machine. I actually like those transfers, to be fair. As long as you can buy Salah back, I'm assuming you've got a lot of value tied up in Salah. I mean, you probably can buy him back because you just sell Haaland again. But do you do in Gameweek 30? That's going to be the question. Maybe just wait until 31 or wildcard around that stage. Bring in a Forest Defender or 8 Nuri. Yeah, as covered before, mate, I would go for a Forest Defender. I have Vista and Bumo Bruno, worth keeping them till 31, or who should I sell? I'd keep them for now. I did mention Bruno as a sell, I think 4 or 5 weeks ago. But against Leicester, he's actually one of my recommended 1 week punts. I would not be selling him yet, maybe in 30 or 31, but not in 29, that's for sure. Yeah, they've all got difficult fixtures on paper. I'd be inclined to keep at least 2 of them until 31. BMax says, hi, Marmoush and Kirkes or Evanilson and Gvardiol from Gameweek 29? That's a good question. Slight preference for Evanilson and Gvardiol, but it's close. Footy LM says benches Gibbs-White and Murillo and played Wood and Konate. I mean, on paper, though, you probably made a good call. It's just a bad outcome in the end. Who's the best Forest mid to go for the next week? I'd argue it's Gibbs-White, but I do like Alanga and Hudson-Odoi. I think Alanga's second and the goal scorer today, Hudson-Odoi, would be third, but it is close. But Gibbs-White with the bonus points and the assist threat he constantly offers and the fact he's on set pieces, he would be first. Cyril says, Everton aren't looking that great defensively under Moyes. They are a better team, but not from an FPL perspective. That's a good point. And that's something we kind of worried about a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Sean Dyche, of course, more of a defense-first sort of manager. David Moyes was kind of a bit more pragmatic at West Ham, but yeah, Everton, it seems there's more of a focus on creating chances. Roman Jarvis says, if you had Salah, Trent, Isak, Mateta, Munoz and Lewis Hall, would you use your free hit or use multiple transfers, possible hits? In this scenario, I'd use the free hit. What is your team name, main? La Scaloneta is basically a nickname for the Argentinian national team because their manager, Lionel Scaloni, has done wonders with the team. And yeah, that's just kind of a nod to that, really. UCL 36 points. Yeah, I saw your comment on my UCL fantasy video and also in the deadline stream earlier. Gvardiol or 8 Nuri? Gvardiol. Sells or a Nottingham Forest midfielder? Sells. 69 points in FPL challenge. That's very good. I'm guessing you had Darwin? Maybe you had Darwin there? Cyril says, my non-free hit Blank Gameweek 29 team, Pickford, Gabriel, Aina, Mazraoui, Castagna, Mbumo, Cliver, Palmer, Marmoush, Wood captain, bench, Flecken and Salah, Isak, Rogers who all blank. Would you do a -4 for anyone? That's a good team, to be fair. I mean, could you buy Haaland in for a hit? That's a possibility, but that probably means selling Palmer, and then that would be a -8, perhaps, unless that's just a -4. I think that's fine. I'm quite happy with that team, to be fair. I think that's pretty solid. I think in the midfield, you'd be interested in Bowen or Fernandes as a 1 week punt, or even Phil Foden. But do you need to? So you've got... Yeah, you've got 10 players, don't you? Yeah, so 10 players. I'd consider getting someone like Fernandes or Bowen. And longer term, Bowen would be my preference for sure. I do like Foden for the next 3. I have to say that. Against Brighton and or Leicester, I'd back him to do very well. Rogers has finished, says, Dylan, do you remember when you got Veltman? I'm always the reason to approach Brian defence. It was actually when, it might have been Game Week 14. I need to double check the exact game week. So when they were about to play Southampton at home. And the reason was Brighton had good fixtures. They also had decent defensive stats at the time. And Veltman, whenever Brighton kept the clean sheet, would get bonus points, basically. And he's only got one return for me, and that came against Brentford in a goalless draw. He got 8 points. Every other time, he's either been injured or blanking, stinking up the gaff, and more often than not, he's on my bench anyway. But yeah, it's been a terrible transfer overall. Henderson on my bench. I don't blame myself, though. Started Alisson at home to the worst team in the league and was confident. Yeah, I don't really blame you. I would have done the same thing, to be fair. Yeah, it's a tough one to take. Henderson made a lot of saves today. I think he was 6 overall. He's got some bonus points, so that is very frustrating. Should we buy players now to gain team value? No. I said this before in my deadline stream. We've got Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League throughout the week. You've still got Sunday matches, and on Monday night, you've got Newcastle versus West Ham. I just don't think it's worth it. Jason Phillips says Visser, Wood, Isak, Salah, Palmer, Clivert, Sarr, Imbumo, Aït-Nouri, Gvardiol, Gabriel, Milenkovic, Sells, and Henderson. Good squad. I always say you don't need 2 goalkeepers of that caliber because, I mean, in your case, you had one of them on your bench who did very well. But, yeah, you don't need to sell one of them now for sure. I'd prioritize that maybe after 32 if you need more money, or after you use the bench boost in 33, whenever that you end up deciding to do it. But yeah, with what you've got, that's very solid. So you've got Salah, Isak, blanking in 29. But that's it, really. Henderson, of course, but that's not a big deal. You're in a good position, I think, for 29. No need for the free hit, of course. I captain Palmer 2nd game week in a row to chase rank. No more, I guess. We might feel differently after tomorrow, but it's not looking good for Palmer captainers at the moment, and I think he'll do well. I've said this all week. I think he'll actually score against Leicester. But yeah, it's a long time since he's scored a goal. I think 8 matches in a row. Surely it doesn't become 9. Generally thought City would go on a run after being knocked out in UCL. I thought they'd win today, and I also thought they'd show more consistency, but they just haven't been able to get going this season. 15 losses out of the last 30 matches across all competitions is crazy. I'm on 22 points with 4 left to play. Yeah, I hope those 4 players do really well for you, but yeah, it's just one of those weeks where everyone's got Salah captain, or most people, and yeah, it's kind of underwhelming with the rest, unless you've got Forest defenders maybe. Even the Saturday games, the one going on right now, there's no points going on. At least, you know, the players who are actually getting points today, no one owns, so it's kind of irrelevant. Got to love double Crystal Palace defence. Yeah, I'm buying Munoz first thing in Game Week 30, that's for sure. And it's probably going to be at the expense of Robinson. Henderson, I owned earlier this season. He wasn't great for me because Palace had that shaky start. But in the last week where I owned him, Henderson did very well. I think he got 8-9 points against Man United, maybe. I have sells already. Should I take one more Forest defender? My other options are Gabriel, Munoz, benched, Mikolenko, Aït-Nouri, need to sell Hall. Wildcard 32. Yeah, I like the Forest defenders, even over Aït-Nouri, who you've got already. I don't mind doubling up on Forest in 29. So going for Milenkovic, Aina, Nico Williams, all viable. My favourite might be Milenkovic for the attacking threat. Cunha, Hall to Wood, Milenkovic with 0.0 million. Is it risky to do now, or else I'll get priced out? Can get to Nico Williams later. I still think it's not worth it. I know I said Milenkovic is my favourite, but I will highlight Nico Williams, I think, in my Transfers podcast because of his value. He has such low ownership, and he's a great entry point to that defence. So I think Cunha could go down in price tonight, if I'm not mistaken. And Chris Wood will probably rise in the next couple of days. He's the most transferred in player at the time of this live stream. I still wait for more information, because what if one of these players that you're bringing in or in your setup already get injured, and that means you need to get rid of them instead, or just change things up a little bit. Fidani says Palmer is in last chance saloon. I get that. And with Haaland having such appealing fixtures, it might be a decent time to make that sort of switch. Slot as AM in FPL Challenge. Yeah, I remember you saying that now. That's true. Yeah, I think some people mentioned Darwin as a great pun, and they asked me about buying him. I still don't think it's worth it with the blank in 29. and poor long-term, well, not poor long-term fixtures. They're good fixtures, but the minutes will be all over the place, I think. If Palmer keeps blanking the next 2 games, who to buy from Newcastle, Palace mid? Well, from Newcastle, Anthony Gordon once he serves that suspension, so you're looking at Gameweek 32 for the double. From Crystal Palace, I mean, Sar's in form. He scored a late winner today. I still think Eze would be my preference for the double. I think he outscores Sar. Uthman says, I have free hit, bench boost, AM and wildcard left. If I AM in 31, 32, 33, when do I use the rest of my chips? That's the problem. I mean, you could then bench boost, for example, in 35 or 36. You could wildcard in 34. And AM in 36. Yeah, I think that's how you could do it. So if you were to do that sort of alternative strategy, I'd say wildcard 34, bench boost 35, and AM 36, or even, yeah, I think that's probably the way to do it. The thing is, though, you won't have a double Gameweek for your bench boost, which might not be the end of the world, but it's not that appealing. I think in that sort of scenario, I'd recommend, so you don't have the triple captain, so that's fair enough. Bench boost 33, free hit 34, and AM in 36. I think that might be the best case scenario, or even 35 if you don't wildcard there. Yusuf says Fernandes and Haaland in for Isak and Salah, plan to wildcard in 31. I know it's only 1 Gameweek where you go without Salah and Isak, but that will be quite tricky to navigate. You are going against the template and deviating away from it. I just don't like Fernandes, at least his fixtures from Gameweek 30 onwards. But I do like him a lot against Leicester. That's a great punt. That's something that free hitters will have over non-free hitters, and yet you're able to get him in for a free transfer. I like it. I like the players that you're bringing in, but selling Isak and Salah, who would be amazing options in Gameweek 30, I'm a bit unsure about. I'd probably go for it, but try to bring back at least one of those players for 31, or Gameweek 30. Of course, you're wildcarding in 31 anyway. Alisson and Van Dijk turn into Onana and Maguire when Southampton goal hit. They have made mistakes like that a few times throughout their career. Not many. It is a rare item, collector's item. I think they did a similar mistake against Arsenal last season. MF says free kicks near the penalty box take forever to take. 1 free kick for Aston Villa took 142 seconds from the whistle to the shot. Needs to be fixed. Yeah, and even goal kicks, for example, they take their time. But referees, of course, they apply time-wasting rules and punishments quite inconsistently. John S says, play Castagna or Howson next week or take a -4 for someone else, no free hit. That is close. I don't think it's worth taking a hit for somebody else. In most scenarios, it wouldn't be anyway. I would lean towards Howson, but it is extremely close. I think both Brentford and Tottenham score. So if that's the case, I just don't see a clean sheet for Fulham or Bournemouth. But in terms of clean sheet odds, I think Bournemouth might be slightly higher. Thank you, Dylan. Much appreciated. Good to see you, as always, and thank you very much. Cyril says, I missed listing Kirkes. I have a full 11. Still not so happy having to play a 5-3-2. Yeah, that's good. Good position to be in. Maybe consider buying a midfielder like Bowen or Bruno Fernandes as a 1-week punt. That could work very well for you. Mateta to Haaland, Palmer to Bowen, Trent to Aït-Nouri, says Connor. I like those moves. I do. Of course, there's always going to be a downside to it. You might want Mateta back for Gameweek 32, but it makes sense to sell him. I don't blame you for that. And he blanks in 29. Palmer, I think he could come good tomorrow. And if that's the case, we might see a shift in terms of how people approach 29, whether they go from Palmer to Haaland or just keep hold of him. And then having no Trent from Gameweek 30 onwards isn't ideal. And I don't trust Aït-Nouri fully. But for Gameweek 29, they are great transfers, I have to say. And if you can buy back Palmer or Trent in Gameweek 30, that looks very solid. I'm guessing you can't get Palmer whilst keeping Haaland. Eze was disappointing, should have scored today. Yeah, he can be kind of hit or miss sometimes. I think he's been more inconsistent this season than he was in previous campaigns. Maybe he misses Elise. That was a great dynamic between those two and Jean-Philippe Mateta. Hey Dylan, thanks for the stream. I guess it's one of those weeks where everyone has a stinker. I don't have any Brentford or Villa players, but I'm still on a 30k red arrow. Oof. Yeah, I mean, Watkins, I was very bullish on him, by the way. He was 6th in my captaincy list. He scored again against Brentford and haunted his former club. I kind of get that. It hasn't been a great week so far, but the Sunday will change things. I basically had this pattern all season. Red arrow on the Saturday, then a green on the Sunday, and it's not too shabby. I've got a lot of players left, but even if I get a green arrow, I don't expect it to be a major one. It'd be a very minor red or green by the end. Any idea for cheap defender transfers that make sense after 29? I still like Howson, 4.5 million. You might even consider Creswell, who might be very appealing in Gameweek 33 with a double and good fixtures. I'm not a huge fan of West Ham defensively, though, I have to say that, but you did ask for cheap defenders there. New rules for goalkeeper that hold the ball over 8 seconds. It will result in a corner kick being awarded. That's true. Obviously, that builds upon the point we're talking about in terms of time wasting. Aston Villa were mentioned by one viewer, and Martinez, for example, does take his time from goal kicks. Yeah, I mean, sometimes when change is introduced, especially in football, we are kind of like, not too sure about that. That could be a good rule change, but there's still a lot of work to be done with other rules that are kind of grey and need to be more, you know, black or white, you could say, or at least give them more clarity and consistency. But I don't want to see this scenario where maybe this is implemented towards the beginning of next season for the first couple of matches and then abandoned. I mean, look at the kicking the ball away this season, you know, resulted in 2 red cards and we haven't seen it ever since. We have seen a few bookings still from time to time, but referees basically pick and choose when they want to punish a player for time wasting, and I don't like that sort of thing. How many Salah will score in EPL in the next 9 games? Oof. I'll look at the fixtures quickly and then give you an option. So the goal scorer for Wolves, by the way, was subbed off with an injury, it seems, or just subbed off at half-time for Sarabia. So not much has happened in this game, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I had a benching dilemma between Mykolenko and Robinson. Robinson got booked and conceded twice, so in the end, maybe I'll gain a point or 2 from that decision, but not exactly the result I wanted. And I benched Mykolenko last week, he got an assist and 6 points overall, so not the greatest actually. So looking at Liverpool's fixtures until the end of the season, and it also depends on minutes, and I think Liverpool will focus on the Champions League a little bit more if they go through, which I think they will. Yeah, some pretty good fixtures up until Gameweek 36 basically, or Gameweek 35. I think Salah gets another 8 goals, I think. Yeah, I think he gets another 8 goals in the next 9 games. We'll see how that goes. That could age horribly wrong. Won't Brighton beat City? It's possible. They are in good form, but I think City get the win. Did Salah surpass his FPL record for 303 points this game? Yes, he's on 306 now. He got maximum bonus points today. That will take him to 306 for the season. Yeah, exactly that, Evercon. Sydney says, who would you rather keep for Gameweek 30? Trent or Diaz? Definitely Trent. 100%. I know Diaz outscored him today. I will get a bonus point, but I think Trent is still more of a standout in his position. He is the most expensive defender in the game. Sometimes you could argue he doesn't offer the best value, but I definitely would go for Trent. Or who would you rather buy for Blank Gameweek 29, Kluivert or Gvardiol? It would be Kluivert still. He is more of a template pick, but he's on penalties. Good fixtures for Bournemouth in the next 3. I think he also helps you tick a lot of boxes like Blank Gameweek 29 with a decent fixture against Brentford at home. What's the Liverpool 6 sub? That concussion sub for Trent. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I haven't seen that incident in particular, but yeah, I'm sure there was a good reason for that. I'm not going to, you know, kind of question everything that happened in that game. Like, for example, people brought up the penalties earlier. I think both of them were correctly awarded. Unfortunately, we're not seeing too much action in this game between Everton and Wolves. And yeah, I'm going to see a blank there from Mykolenko. So that will mean Sells 8-pointer once the bonus points are added. Salah with 15 points, and that's 30 as my captain. Chris Wood blank, Trent blank, and Mykolenko also a blank. I've got, and let's not forget Mbeumo, by the way, very disappointing against Aston Villa. So I've got Colwill, Palmer, Kluivert, Semenyo, and Isak left. Hopefully that's enough to secure a green arrow. This is a bit of a short reaction stream than usual. Of course, it's a bit of a different one with the Everton Wolves game taking place, and hopefully you have enjoyed it. And there's going to be more content headed your way, like the transfer tips, maybe even tomorrow. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And for UCL Fantasy, the best wildcard and team selection videos will be released on the Monday. The deadline stream on Tuesday will be for UCL Fantasy, of course, and it's worth mentioning injuries have happened. Florian Wirtz, for example, picked up an injury for Bayer Leverkusen in their 2-0 loss against Werder Bremen at home, so that is something else I will need to address in future videos because he did feature as one of the best options in the midfield for my best Limitless team. So that might actually result in an updated Limitless team being provided in one of my future videos for UCL Fantasy. But you can follow me on X, Instagram and Blue Sky, DylanRCM. There's also my Discord server, FPL League, Spotify, and much more. Thank you to those that have tuned in and shown support for the last couple of months. We have made a lot of progress. I'm looking to reach even more in the future. I'll see you very soon for more FPL and UCL Fantasy videos. There are even more streams headed your way. Of course, next Saturday, there is another FPL deadline. And this Tuesday, it will be another hectic UCL Fantasy deadline stream. I can't wait to have you on board. Take care, enjoy the football. Hopefully some points happen in this game, but more realistically, we're looking at the Sunday and the Monday for maybe a green arrow in the end of Gameweek 28. But I'll see you very soon. Blank Gameweek 29 will be covered in the best possible way, so you're well prepared for the rest of the season. Take care.